Hi, and welcome to the show. Rate and review the show at kevinmd.com/rate. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome back on the show Francisco Torres. He's an interventional physiatrist specializing in diagnosing and treating patients with spine-related pain syndromes. He's the author of the book, Epigenetics and the Psychology of Weight Loss, How to Lose More Weight with Less Effort. There's an excerpt from that book on Kevin MD titled, We Cannot Ignore Nutrition's Impact on Both Pain and Obesity. Francisco, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Kevin, for having me again.
We're going to talk about the book and the excerpt a little bit, but just for those who didn't get a chance to listen to our first episode together, just briefly share your story and journey to where you are today.
Sure. Like you mentioned, I'm an interventional physiatrist. I did a fellowship at LSU and then settled down in Florida. I've been here for the last 30 years doing pain management, including wellness too, which is my passion. So the story goes back. I grew up with a lot of anxiety to the point that I wrote my memoirs about trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder. And that affected my weight. I come from a family that everybody's big, didn't pay too much attention to what they were eating, chronically inflamed. As a matter of fact, several members of my family, including my mother and my father, died from falls and compression fractures. So I was heading the same path. During the residency, you know what happens. You're so stressed out. You want to be successful. You want to finish, and nutrition is not really a priority.
Yeah.
So I kept going, and when I turned 40, I tried to do a transformation. I made an amazing transformation, but it only lasted 3 months, and then I went back. And then until the late 40s, I had a heart event. I had chest pain. I went to the ER. I was having the referral pain. So the bottom line was that they did a cath. There was nothing wrong with the heart, but the doctor, the cardiologist said, if you don't change your way of living, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
So that really motivated me to change. So I made an amazing transformation that I was even impressed. And, it lasted for 10 years. I was very good. But one of the things that I have learned as I go, which I think that's the difference, what I'm trying to do with this book is just pay attention more to a little bit to the psychology of the weight loss, because you can make a huge transformation physically, but if you don't change mentally, it's going to be very hard to maintain it. And it happened to me. I got constantly, I guess, harassed in many ways, saying that my after picture were Photoshop. And that every time that happened, I start doubting myself. And I said, that's what happened with the patient. We can make them lose the weight. And if they don't have a very strong mental power to maintain that weight, they're just going to lose it very easily.
All right. So your book is titled Epigenetics and the Psychology of Weight Loss, How to Lose More Weight with Less Effort. Your excerpt focuses on nutrition's impact on pain and obesity. So let's talk about that excerpt on Kevin MD. So tell me the events. Why did you decide to write that one?
Because being a pain management physician and even a general practitioner can see that we have a problem with obesity and overweight, which is affecting the patient's health. And when you start dealing with pain, the problem is that we start to make an assumption that because they're overweight, they're obese, they're going to have more pain. And I started doing a little bit of research how to approach that issue that I have on a daily basis. And that's why I put that a little bit of a chapter, which is based also on the testimonial of one of my patients. And that's what it's the beauty. My patient, Jim, agreed to tell his story, which was amazing. He's a patient that injured himself. He had a very busy business. And then he went through bariatric surgery. He lost an amazing amount of weight, but he gained it back right away. And he had to lose his business. All the doctors they say, hey, you're too fat. We cannot do surgery. Even the procedures, send the patient for me to do procedures. And I have my doubts. I say, I cannot even see the needle with a fluoroscope. But I talked to him and I told him my story, and we talk about, do you really want to change? And then when he told me that he had a very strong why about his family, then we start working together. And oh my goodness, right now, it's amazing his story, because he went from no chances. Now he's very successful. He had lost 200 pounds, cut down significantly on his pain medication. And then the beauty is that now he's working out every day. He sees purpose. And basically what we did was several adjustments to make it easy to work out.
Yeah. So tell me about that intersection between obesity and pain. So how does obesity aggravate chronic pain?
We know that people who are obese tend to be less active. So their joints, their ligament, their muscle are going to be deconditioned. So you're going to be predisposed to hurt yourself very easily. So you don't have the muscle tone to brace yourself. And I think that's a given. And plus, because our cardiovascular system requires also to be in good shape, that extra amount of weight makes the tissue ischemic, like you don't have blood flow going into them. So again, more prone to have injuries, including the fracture, like happened in my family, have osteoporosis from the lack of exercise, and then they're more prone to have those fractures, which are debilitating and incapacitating.
So take us into your exam room. So if you're seeing someone for chronic pain or seeing someone for the first time for a pain consult and they are obese, they are overweight, so how do you introduce nutrition? So take us into the exam room. How do you talk about that?
Yeah, it's a very good question because do some indirect question. I check with them about their lifestyle, what they're looking for, what makes them wake up every morning. And I try to get that big why. If I
Mm.
get a very strong why, I don't care how big the patient is, how difficult it is. I think we're going to be successful. At least we're going to make some progress. And the other thing that I tell them is because I went through all this and I continue to learn, is to make things simple. I tell my patient, you don't need to go to the gym to work out because a lot of, including myself, I was very threatened going to the gym and seeing all these fit people and seeing myself in the mirror. I say, I don't feel comfortable. And a lot of my patients go through that. So I try to make them be more comfortable with the concept of exercise and also to see that it's not a diet. The problem with diet,
Sure.
look, the first three letters of diet is you die. So I don't want them to be restricted. I
So how
want
do you
them
do
to
that? How
think
do you
that.
make them feel more comfortable about exercise?
Oh, well, simple things that sometimes I'd say, look, when you're watching TV, like now we have games, you get off couch and then I put them through a simple routine that they still can be watching the TV and they can increase their heart rate while they're doing that. The same thing I tell my patient many times when I'm brushing my teeth in the morning, I do squats. So the thing is to use your everyday activities to increase your heart rate, build up muscle mass.
And tell me a success story about how your advice led them to lose weight and that helped with their chronic pain.
Well, like I say, go back to the gym phase. He cut down significantly pain medication.
Okay.
Now he is so fit that he if he misses an appointment with his trainer, he feels really horrible.
All right.
And now he's walking. He became president of his homeowners association. He has a purpose, and I think that what I'm offering them is to give them a purpose to be active and physical. I always tell the story. Now I'm being recently a grandfather, and
Mm.
now it's so cool that I can put up with them. And then when they compare with the other grandparent that they're overweight, they prefer me. So I know it's selfish, but that's a reality. You have a purpose.
So a lot of people come to you for chronic pain, and because they're in pain, they cannot exercise. So what comes first?
First thing, Kevin, that I tell them, you can only lose 5% of weight of your body weight with exercise. So the exercise is overrated for weight loss. It's a wonderful tool, and I tell them to maintain the weight. Like happens to me, I work out really heavy, but then it gives me a little bit of room to eat more and be a little bit less careful with what I'm eating. And that's what I tell my patient. But that is really wrong to think that because they're not exercising, they are not able to lose the weight. And I think that once we talk about that is what they're eating, we go through a food diary because, and that's another thing, Kevin, that people tell me, oh, I eat healthy. But when you talk to them individually, what is healthy is not that healthy, and then they see it in writing and say, oh, I didn't know that. Well, I didn't know that I have to do this or that.
So do you spend a lot of time talking about nutrition in the exam room when they come to you for chronic pain?
Yeah, Kevin, because it's my passion.
Yeah.
And I have gone through so much and I continue to learn. I also talk in the book. One of the things that I'm surprised that after 10 years, I thought I already made it, that I was comfortable with the pandemic. I was part of that pandemic depression. That once they closed the gym, I became very depressed. I gained another 20 pounds, like 19 pounds from COVID.
Yeah.
And when I tried to come back, I hurt myself and I
Mm.
had to go through a major knee. So I understand how easy it is to deviate. So that's why you have to do repetition. I talk to them about the morning hour of power, that you can just have to have a routine and don't change it.
So without telling us all your nutrition secrets, so what kind of main nutrition points do you emphasize in the exam room when you talk to patients who come to you for chronic pain?
Well, again, based on each patient,
Yeah.
because they have different problems. There are some people addicted to the sugar, some people addicted to soda. So I have to identify what is their problem. And then alcohol too, So that the other thing that I have to approach with them is to make it easy. So
Mm.
instead of giving them a lot to do, I just cut something, I move things. I'm big with intermittent fasting. And that's the first thing I do. I start to say, hey, why don't we limit the time that you eat for 8 hours? And then don't worry about what you're eating those 8 hours. Let's just start playing. So once you start introducing things very slowly, they seem to do well that way.
All right. So your book is titled Epigenetics and the Psychology of Weight Loss: How to Lose More Weight with Less Effort. So what are some of the other main key points that you want readers to come away with from
Well,
your
I
book?
just want to admit that I thought that we were all born with a specific gene setup, genetic setup, and that there's no way I could have a six pack. And I kind of figured this out on my own. And now that I start doing the research, I understand what I did was modify my genes through epigenetics. So I think it's exciting. I think there's never too late to change.
Yeah. So for those who aren't familiar with epigenetics, what is that?
Well, it's just that you have the code that you don't change. That's the fixed code. That those are the genes. But then you have the epigenetic, the molecule on top of it, that they're prone to change with your behavior, with your thought process. That's why meditation is so powerful. Prayers, all of things are just modifying the way those genes express.
All right. We're talking to Francisco Torres. He's an interventional physiatrist, and his Kevin MD article, which is an excerpt from his book, is titled We Cannot Ignore Nutrition's Impact on Both Pain and Obesity. So, any tips from your book that you could give advice to primary care doctors who may be seeing patients with chronic pain, with obesity in the exam room? Any tips that you could share with us that we could apply?
Well, I think the first thing, because this is like almost constantly, is to tell the patient it's only 5% that you can lose with
Okay.
exercise activity. I would just say up front, I don't buy that story. I think we need to come back and sit down. I think food diaries for me are very revealing. I tell the patient, you don't even have to write them down. You can take pictures when you sit at the table. And once you start seeing what they're doing, it, like, for example, they assume that cereal is good and healthy because it lowers the cholesterol, and then you just have to correct the amount of sugar. I think that's basically what I will do initially to be sure that you identify what's making that patient overweight.
All right. And my final question: what are some of your take home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
That I think that what you need is to somebody who really believes in you. First of all, you have to believe in yourself that you can change no matter how bad you are. My story, my patient story, Jim's story, you can do it, but you need to have a coach, a good doctor who believes in you.
All right, Francisco, thank you so much for coming back on the show and sharing your time and insight.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I appreciate it.